And we're kind of live. We're recording a video tonight for Wednesday, November 6th. And our goal is to start doing more content more often, more frequently. Um, and so we're going to start trying to do a video midweek on Wednesdays to be pre recorded. So um, if you're listening, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And welcome. This is Wondrous Wednesday. And we're going to talk about some interesting things today, specifically a new show that just dropped on Cartoon. It's a Cartoon
Oh,
Network,
Adult Swim.
Adult Swim, right? And it's called Invincible Fight Girl, and it's a new series. This came out animated about a girl who really wants to be a wrestler, right? And she dreams of being a wrestler, since she was a kid or whatever. And but the problem is, she grew up and was raised by her parents who are accountants, right? And they really want her to be an accountant, right? It's the family business, it's their family legacy. It's been passed down from grandpa, great grandpa, and all this stuff, right? And so, of course, the pressure is on her to, please her parents versus following her dream of becoming a wrestler. That's kind of the gist of the plot and the character arc. We watched the first episode of season one, um, and we have some thoughts. Um, some good, some not so good. Right? You want to start with what you thought of the that first episode?
I thought it didn't belong in Adult Swim. To be perfectly frank, it doesn't feel like an Adult Swim show.
Yeah,
It feels too childish, and that's not necessarily. It's good and bad. So for context, with Invincible Fight Girl, created by uh, the creator is Justin Gordon Montgomery. I don't know if he's worked on anything else, but
yeah. I don't know. I don't recognize the name. I mean, no doubt he has, but
oh, he's worked on My Dad the Bounty Hunter. That's
okay,
actually
yeah, I
something
recall
I've
that
been
show.
meaning to
Actually,
see.
I watched a few episodes of that. It's okay. It's
Okay.
not bad. It's a pretty fun concept. Um, I'm a little. That's something we could probably talk about too. That came out a few years ago,
Yeah,
and
I
it's
remember
it's
this.
it's got some, you know kind of similar issues with this show that we talked about. So
Okay.
yeah,
So this is obviously a very anime inspired show. I
yes,
mean,
yeah, very much so. Yeah,
most people compare it to Dragon Ball Z and One Piece. However, more cultured people like myself will recognize that there's a lot of there's a lot of I mean, it's a wrestling, it's an over the top wrestling anime. So
yeah,
obviously,
yeah,
the biggest ones that you can think of in the context of anime are either Tiger Mask or Kinnikuman, or as we know in the states as Ultimate Muscle.
yeah.
So we got the sequel to the original Kinnikuman uh, show in America. So
Right.
it's a
Which
mix
I
of,
remember. Yeah, I
yeah,
remember that version of Ultimate Muscle.
yeah. So
Yeah,
on the surface, I would describe it as My Hero meets Ultimate Muscle, which in concept sounds really cool. The way it's executed, I personally think is really bad. And a lot of that, two big reasons is a, like I said, it feels too childish for an Adult Swim show. Like if this is geared towards young adults, even young adults, it doesn't feel like it feels like the show is treating me like a child, and which is in this case is not a good thing because it's the way the story unfolds feels very by the numbers and like very like laid out, like characters literally explain everything to you. instead of like show you, and
Yeah.
it just makes it really boring. There are I like I I was able to get through the whole show because it wasn't like it was just there wasn't really anything about it that really stood out to me. Like this is gonna be this is different. This is this is gonna be the next big thing. I
Yeah.
just and
Yeah.
which wouldn't bother me.
Yeah.
I've watched pretty I've watched pretty generic animes in the past, but there was usually something that was endearing about it that really make me identify with a specific character. Usually it's the protagonist, and I didn't get that here because we really don't get I really don't get a sense of the character Andy. Her name is Andy. Outside of the fact that she wants to wrestle and she doesn't want to be an accountant. So yeah, I wasn't a fan. I'm not really attached to the character. There's nothing really about her that stands out to me
Yeah.
on her own, and a lot of the supporting cast is kind of lame. The highlight for me was the perm gang. I kind of wanted the way they're introduced. They seem like they're gonna be like a Team Rocket type of bad guy, like because there's faces and heels in wrestling. So it made me think that they were going to be this sort of like DU Force meets Team Rocket,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. They were kind of
they were
goofy and funny.
yeah.
Yeah.
They don't really go all out with it. Like the wrestlers, like here's the thing: if you're gonna do like over the top wrestling, make it over the top. Like I was half expecting like them to incorporate their perms in their attack. Like there's a move
Yeah. That's true.
those
That seemed kind of
perm
weird. That
spear. Yeah,
the
I wanted the perm to turn into a spear.
Well, I was thinking they would pull like weapons out of their hair or something. Like
That would have been
something,
funny.
or the perms would like kind of
Well,
come alive
here's
and
the thing. There's four
fight
characters.
for 'em.
What is the thing? There's four characters, so each perm could have done something different.
Yeah, that's true. I
Yeah,
mean,
but
yeah,
they were
it's like it's almost like
so it doesn't really go. It doesn't really go all
it
the
doesn't
way
go far enough.
with its
Yeah,
concept. Yeah,
they don't push the idea far. That's kind of this whole show, to be honest.
yeah.
Right? It's like all throughout the show, there's that feeling like they're not going far enough. They're kind of rushing through the plot points just to get to the big scene. And then even in the big scene, it feels very rushed and contrived, right? It doesn't feel earned at all, right? Um, and we're going to spoil this, so we're not going to hold back information. So so if you haven't seen it,
I mean, we kind of have to spoil it.
yeah. But yeah, so basically, it starts off with her. It's like 10 years earlier, and her parents, who are accountants, right? They take her to a wrestling match, and this is the scene, right? It opens up 10 years ago. Those are her parents sitting at a wrestling match in the stands, and they look like they don't want to be there. And she, the main character, is sitting behind them, basically trying to squeeze through so she can see, right? So it's like, did they bring her to see the match and they didn't want to, but somehow she guilted them into doing it? Maybe you know what I mean. Like they clearly don't want to be there, and but she's
It,
mesmerized
it would have made
by
more. Yeah,
what she's seeing, right? And then this top wrestler shows up and she kind of regulates and you know
it would have made more sense for her to be watching this match on TV, and then her parents are like, "Hey, turn that nonsense off and get
yeah,
back to
I
wrestling."
agree. That's what I'm saying. It's kind of weird because it starts off really cool actually, because they show this world, and it kind of looks like Earth, but then you realize, wait a minute,
It was a
that's a
giant
muscle.
bicep. Yeah,
Yeah,
no.
that's a muscle arm there. Like, so you realize, oh wow, okay, it's Earth, but it's not really Earth, right? And then the announcer, which is Keith David, by the way, awesome, always iconic voice, right?
For sure. Yeah.
Um, and he's like, in this world, wrestling is everything. It's life, right? It's the top thing in the world. Like, and then you go, okay, I get that, right? You see the muscle arm. He says wrestling is life, like it's the ultimate thing. And then you get to this match, and people are screaming, and they're like, "Yeah, right." And you
Yeah.
realize, okay, it's everything, right? You see this alligator guy, you see, all kinds of, all colors, shapes, sizes, right? So you're like, okay, makes sense, right? This is it. This is the top thing in the world. But then you see this, and it's like, apparently it's not top to them, right? They
Yeah.
really don't care. So yeah, I don't. It's kind of weird. And then it fast forwards after that, 10 years later, obviously, and she's graduating from some academy, and it's like, okay, and it's the accounting, and we find out that it's not just an accounting school, or
It's an
high
accounting
schoolers.
island.
It's an accounting island. It's a society of accountants. How that makes sense, I don't know, but that's what it is. So,
And here's the thing:
so
when we say it doesn't make sense, what we're saying is that they don't. It doesn't make sense in the context of the world.
right, they just established that wrestling is everything. So why aren't these
Now,
accountants
now I would argue
why
that
is there an accountant island? So is there a wrestler island? Like, I don't know. It doesn't follow.
here's the thing. I would say like, you know, I don't think that's inherently a bad thing because they made it seem like they set it up where the different jobs that we'll be introduced to they all they all cater to the wrestlers, right? Like the accounters exist to do taxes for the wrestlers, right?
Right.
Like dragon, like in
Yeah. That's
Dragon
kind of
Ball,
the
in
yeah. That's
classic,
the feeling you get. Yeah.
yeah,
Eventually. Yeah.
like in classic Dragon Ball, right? Obviously, you could tell that the world revolves around martial arts, but that doesn't mean that every single person in the world is a martial artist, right?
Well,
But
of course. Right. Right. That's a very good point. But yet, if you watch Dragon Ball, you don't really see much anything else but the fighters. Like, it's pretty much fighters and fighters and aliens and more fighters, and
well, yeah,
which is because
well,
that's the center of it is Goku becoming stronger, getting more, like, so they don't waste time with a lot of the other.
no, they don't. Well, I mean, and also there's also the Chinese mythology aspect. I think that's also important.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like, there's like the movie, it's an older movie, but where they show like a whole city, and there's like they're like
Uh huh.
fight crime and all that kind of stuff. So they show like, yeah, there's a life, there's civilization, right?
Yeah.
But they don't overemphasize. They don't really spend a lot of time. Right?
No, no, they
It's
don't.
mainly about the Dragon Balls, and it's about the power ups and all that.
Yeah.
Here, it's like, yeah, they set up a whole, it's a counting society, right? And it's like, okay, so obviously wrestling isn't everything. Accounting is also something. You see what I mean? Like, that's what throws
You know
me
what would
off.
have made more sense is if they showed the world where normal people get treated like second class citizens, but then like
Yeah,
wrestlers got special privileges because they were wrestlers,
yeah, yeah.
and
I
that's
agree.
why.
And that's the thing. That goes to what I was saying earlier about not going far enough, because that's kind of what happens later on, and sort of the third act of the episode, where she ends up fighting one of those perm whatever wrestlers, and because they start tearing up the town, right? They start, basically what happens is, for really ridiculous reason, the actual accountants at her school are are sick and they can't do the taxes for the wrestlers who are coming in the next day. So the students have to step up and do the taxes for the wrestlers, which is a huge deal. It's it's like a holiday almost, right? Although you really wouldn't know it
Well, it
because
was
you
more
don't
of
know it until
an
they say.
emergency. Yeah.
Well, it is, but no, but it's a big deal, right? Because it's like an annual thing.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
Remember, but you don't know it until they say it, and then when they do say it, the main character who was supposed to be this person who was raised to be an accountant, who's going to this accountant academy and is getting ready to graduate, right? Has no idea about this. Like she has no clue, and her classmate has to explain it to her, which is
Mm, yeah,
it makes for a nice exposition dump, I suppose. But
well,
it's kind of like
it wasn't a nice expedition.
yeah, and even in within the story, right? I guess it's self
Yeah,
aware. The kid is like, you grew up in this town, you've been here all your life, and you don't know about the wrestler tax day or whatever, right?
yeah, it doesn't make any
It,
sense.
yeah, it's like, huh? How is it? If anything, she should have been the one that came to that realization and was like, "Yo, this is my chance," right? Because that's what she does eventually. Once she tells her what's happening, she goes,
Yeah,
"Oh, this is my chance. I can meet the wrestlers and ask them, this question,
right,
right?" And it's kind of like, okay, but shouldn't you already know this? Like, wouldn't that
right,
be something? Wouldn't that be something you're looking forward to because it happens every year?
right.
Like when it's like, what did you do last year? And that's what I'm saying about they don't go far enough. It's like they set up the beginning where she's all inspired by this top wrestler, right? Okay, so obviously that sparks the inspiration to want to be a wrestler.
Yeah,
Then they just fast forward 10 years and she's an accountant, and it's like, okay. And then they show her, hey, she doesn't like accounting, obviously. She's not very smart. They don't show her really doing anything like,
yeah. She
you
just
know,
types slow, and that's really
yeah,
bad.
she's like, oh, I can't remember this key command for this software. Like it's kind of silly. Like it doesn't establish her as like, and that's the thing. It really didn't have to make it where she's incompetent as an accountant, right? It could have just been she just doesn't like it. Like she's bored. Like it would have been better, in my opinion, if they made it where she's actually really good at it. Like she is good at accounting, but she just doesn't want to do it.
She's just boring. It's
Yes,
just boring. Yeah,
it's boring, or it's uninteresting, it's uninspired, because maybe she doesn't see sort of the beauty behind it. Like her parents probably see this beauty behind math and all this kind of stuff, but she doesn't see it yet. And that would have made it for an interesting story arc where she pursues wrestling, she gets her opportunity, but then somehow in the midst of training and all this stuff, she realizes her acumen as a accountant somehow helps her be a better wrestler. Like being able to calculate moves and create mathematical formulas for her wrestle moves. I don't know, studying her opponents and all that kind of stuff, right? Just being analytical, like that is kind of a missed opportunity. And I'm not sure if that's going to happen later, but the way they set her up now, it's like she's just dumb. Like she doesn't know how to be an accountant.
yeah,
Like because even in later in the early part of the show, like she's talking to when they have the actual wrestler tax day. Hey, she's looking forward to it. She's excited, right? It's
but
like,
then
okay,
she's late.
yeah. Then they show her watching a wrestle video, right? Of it's like one of those old school. I'm dating myself, like Jack LaLanne, like aerobic.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's like really, really like calm and kind of lame, right?
Hmm.
And Bob Ross type, like calm, soothing voice. This is how you do a chokehold, right? It's actually a funny scene. I actually like that.
Yeah,
There's a lot of
it's
things in here
structured
that I
pretty well. Yeah.
like, but they just don't go far enough with it, right? And that's one of
Hmm.
those actually kind of funny, like the video and everything. But it's like, and then she falls asleep, and once again, and this is where we'll talk about a little bit about the contrast and comparison with Ultimate Muscle, and you'll see what we're talking about. But she oversleeps and she's late for the big tax day, right? And it's kind of like, what? Like you're like, why are you late? And it's not even that she's late, right? It's that she's late because she overslept because she was watching wrestler videos. You know what I mean? Like versus what if she was late because of some externality, like the weather, or the car broke down. The parents driving her to school, or the bus was late, or got a flat tire. Like any other thing where there's an obstacle in her way, and now she has to overcome that obstacle to get there, and she fails, and she's late, right? That would have been more interesting versus I just overslept, and not to mention, if you're gonna make it, she overslept. Why don't you set that up? In other words, if you're setting her up to be a slacker, right? Which is, it seems that's what they were kind of trying to do. I guess
Yeah.
they just didn't, like I said, they didn't push it enough, in my opinion. So it's like make her slacker, make it where it's like you're always late and you're always, you don't turn in your homework on time, and you failed this last test. You didn't
Hmm.
study. But what were you doing? Why didn't you study for the test? What were you doing? What are you doing with your time? And then you find out, well, she's wrestling, in her off time, right? In secret, because she knows people won't understand, right? Like, would you understand what I mean? Like that would establish like she really has this passion, but the
Hmm.
passion is encroaching on her, her obligation, right, to her
Right.
parents, right, to be this accountant. And it's like that's where you create the conflict. And because right now it didn't really feel like there was any conflict, because later, like I was getting to, it was the next day when she's late, and the principal, finds her, and she's like, you're not gonna do anything. In fact, you need to leave. You can't do any taxes for anybody because you suck. You're a terrible accountant. And she's like, just stay away, and I promise I'll give you your certificate. That's literally what
Yeah.
the principal, and this is her
Yeah. It's
principal, what she says, like, just stay out of the way,
like, go
and
away.
we'll just give you a certificate. Like,
Don't
it's
let
like
her
the
cook.
most ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's like they can't wait to get rid of her. But I'm like, yo, so you just gotta give her a certification with, like, what kind of
It's
school is this?
yeah.
Like versus saying like you're gonna fail. So we're not going to let you near anybody. And I just didn't have the heart to tell you sooner, but we're going to flunk you out of school. You're not going to graduate. Like that would have been way more devastating and like impactful, right? To say, the truth is we're going to fail you. You're not going to make it as an accountant. Goodbye, right? Then it's like, okay, wow, now that's a barrier, right? That's another obstacle. So now, not only was she late because the bus broke down or something, right, or there was a storm, I don't know, right? Now, or she's just a constant slacker, right? And now that slacking is paying off, and you're going to fail out of school, and because of that, you can't see your favorite wrestlers, right? You don't have an opportunity to actually meet in person
Right.
people that you idolize, right? That would have been really great. But instead, it's just, well, we'll just give you a certificate. just don't show up. So they
Right.
kick her out the building, right? She's sitting outside, and then her classmates sitting there crying and hyperventilating, and she's like, "What's the problem?" He's like, "Oh, I'm nervous. I'm scared. I'm so nervous, right? Because he's never done it before." It's like, okay, that kind of makes sense. It's supposed to be this big day. They're wrestlers. They're like
Yeah.
superstars, right? And instead of consoling her friend, right, and encouraging him and or something, right, she just takes his place. She like steals his name tag or whatever, and sneaks back into the building.
Yeah. It was kind of
And,
nuts.
and to put in perspective as to how ridiculous this is her friend, right? So it's not like she could like dress like him and like you're not gonna fool anybody, right? But she gets in
Yeah,
somehow anyway,
it
and all
was
she
really
has is
dumb.
newspaper over her face, you know, and no one's like going, "Is she supposed to be here? Is she supposed to be gone?" Right? Nobody said it. Just you know, so it just gets dumb, right? Like not silly, dumb. Like there's silliness, right? Like with Ultra Muscle, we'll talk about that. Then there's just dumb. Like this is just dumb, right? So, and this is where she meets the Perma Squad or whatever they're called, and Perma Gang. Yeah, they introduced themselves, and this is what got me too. Right, this is a you know, there's a lot of issues, but this is another one. they introduce themselves, right? So you're like, okay, these guys supposed to be like big time
Oh
wrestlers.
yeah. So right, because what's her name? Andy. So she's supposed to be this big super fan, right?
Yeah, right.
But
She's
she
supposed
has
to be.
no
I want
idea
to be
who
a
they are.
wrestler since I was a kid. This is all I've ever wanted.
Yeah.
She has no idea who they are.
So here's the thing, like My Hero. So I made the My Hero comparison on purpose, right? When we're introduced to Deku, right? He has no powers, right? But we know he's a super fan right off the bat, because we see that he recognizes like even like B tier, C tier superheroes,
Right,
and he's always taking notes. He has a notebook full of
right.
like superheroes.
Exactly. He's obsessed with it. He's
Yeah,
like, and that's the whole point. They established that through current day where he has the book and he's walking. He's not even paying attention. Right. He's just
yeah,
making notes. But then they show flashbacks of him and his mom, him watching All Might on television, telling his mom like, "I want to be that, right? Can I be a hero too?" And his mom's like crying because he's like, "You'll never be a hero. Like you don't have a quirk, right? That was the whole
yeah.
point. You don't have it, and it's like it's impossible, right? Because they didn't. No one knew about the ability to transfer quirks, right? So it's like, yeah, it's kind of sad, right? It's kind of heartbreaking because you realize, yeah, this kid had this hope to be something that technically he could never really be, right? And so then when he finds out that he can be a hero, that's what makes the
Yeah,
moment
it's
all
a
the
big
more
deal.
powerful. When All Might tells him, "Yes, you can be a hero," and it's like, really, like what, and watching that for the first time, it's actually a beautiful moment. Like when I first saw it, I was like, "Yo, that's kind of dope," because I was kind of suspecting, like, okay, what's gonna happen? Like, someone's gonna give him a gadget or something, like, or they're gonna find out, maybe some kind of magic spell. I don't know. But yeah, it's like he's like, I can transfer my ability. Like it's really cool, right? Because you're figuring, well, he doesn't have any power, so what's gonna happen? Like how's he gonna become this hero? And we don't really get that here, right? Because
No,
we get this team, which like I said, they're really funny, right? So I hope that there would be like some really cool, funny quirks with them, but not really. But
no, it's just generic wrestling stuff.
yeah, it wasn't really.
Like I said earlier, they never use their perms in combat. That
Yeah,
would have been
well, not only that,
awesome.
but like you see the one with the bat wings, right? She doesn't do anything with
Yeah,
the bat.
she
Like,
does.
she doesn't
He
fly or
really
nothing.
does.
Like, yeah, so it's kind of like, what's the
Uh,
point of, like it doesn't really make a lot of sense. But anyway, so she doesn't know who they are, which is, like I said, weird because you're supposed to be this fan.
you're supposed
So
to be a
then I
super
figured,
fan.
well, maybe she doesn't know who they are because they really aren't famous and they're kind of lying to her, right? Like
Yeah,
you said, Team Rocket, right? They act like they're this big time,
yeah. That would have
but in
been a good
reality,
twist,
they're
but they don't. They
yeah,
don't
but
do it.
they never pay that off. Like there's never a twist where you realize, oh, they're a bunch of losers. Like no one knows who they
Right.
are. Like that's the whole point. Like they act like they're big time, but the reality is they really aren't. Right? They're obscure wrestlers, and they're like way low on the totem pole. Right? That would have been a funny payoff where it's like, cause, and she doesn't even say that like in a sense where she just goes, "I never heard of you guys." Like in other words, I know my wrestlers, and I've never heard of you guys. Right? So
Right.
that would have been a great moment, but like I said, they just didn't do it. It's kind of like, yeah, why didn't they do that? Like it would have made sense, and it would have been funny. You know, uh, so yeah, it's like, yeah, we're famous, and you just take their word for it, and then a wrestler, so why wouldn't they be, right? But
Yeah.
then if she's a big hardcore wrestle fan and wants to be a wrestler, why doesn't she know who they are? Why wouldn't it makes no sense, right? But she's like,
Yeah.
oh, it's cool. Like it's like, okay. So it's like, so what is she? Does she want to be a wrestler? Is she into it, or is she just like thinks it's cool or something? Like we don't know. It's like these little hints, right? Watching the video, watching the tournament at like 5 years old or something, right? And then now wanting to meet wrestlers, but it's like, what was happening in the years prior? Because
Right.
this has to be an annual thing, right? It's taxes. So
Right.
you never tried to meet the wrestlers at any point. Like it's just very weird, right? Because like I said, her classmate knew all about it. The classmate
Hmm.
was like, "Oh, that means if they're sick and they want the students to help, that means we're gonna, like he knew, he gave it a whole breakdown." And I'm like, so he knows, which he should know. So why wouldn't she know? Like it's just weird. Um, that's what I mean. Like they're just skipping over so many things that would make this a more robust story, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's like it's giving me very very big Mary Sue vibes. Like I'm just gonna be honest. Like, and I want to like this show because the animation looks really beautiful. It's
I
nice.
like the art style.
Yeah,
I do like a few of the
it's
character designs, mainly the perm gang. But
yeah. The
outside
Perm
of that,
King is kind of cool actually.
it takes a lot of surface level anime tropes, but doesn't go far enough for
Yeah,
me.
there's a lot of anime tropes. The
Like I
speed
say,
and
it's
all that
very
stuff.
surface level, so it doesn't
Yeah,
actually do
it is.
anything meaningful with them.
Yeah, but yeah. So she ends up. She asked them the question, which is, "Can anyone be a wrestler?" I think, right?
Yeah.
Or can I? Yeah, she says, "Can anyone be a wrestler?" Something like that, and they laugh at her, right? They're like, "Oh, that's ridiculous, right? You're an accountant, you can't be a wrestler," which kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you're an accountant. Why would you? Why would anyone say, "Yeah, you could be a wrestler"? Like
Yeah.
it makes sense. See, when you compare it to My Hero, right? And the question isn't asked, "Can I be a hero?" Right? Because he already answered it, saying, "I can never be a hero because I don't have a quirk." But All Might says, "No, you can be a hero," because he knows something that Midoriya doesn't. Right?
Well, not at first, because remember, so
Well,
Mi-
no, and
Mi-
yeah, that's what I was getting to is it wasn't until after Midoriya does.
right, but when he first asked it, he does ask, "Can I be a
Yeah,
hero?"
yeah.
And All Might says, "No,
No,
you're
right.
better off helping as maybe a police officer." Like letting
Yeah,
him
that's
down.
right. That's right on the rooftop. Yeah, I
But it
remember.
wasn't until that Midoriya showed his courage, right, by charging
Right.
in to save his classmate,
Even
even
though
with
he
no
had
power.
no quirk, no powers.
Right.
That's when he was like, "Yes, you can be." And that's what I'm saying. But he had to earn that. Yes,
Yeah, I
he had
agree.
to earn it. And I don't know. That's what I'm saying with this. It's like, yeah, it makes sense that they would laugh because they're like, "Yeah, what do you? You're an accountant. Like you're not even a full accountant. Like you haven't even graduated yet." It's like, why would we go, sure, you can be a wrestler? That makes no sense. Like you're what, 14, 15-year-old girl. It, yeah, it's not logical, right? It's not reasonable. So them laughing is kind of like, okay. And then she walks out and she's sad, of course, that they laughed at her. And it's kind of like, well, why would you be sad?
Yeah.
Why would you be? It makes no sense. Like, see, it's different if, what if instead, right, she went to some type of tryout for a wrestling club or right, and she walks in and she's all geared up. She's got the wrestle uniform on, right? She's like, "Okay, I'm ready. I'm ready to do this." And they look at her, and go, "No, you can't be a wrestler. You're not. Where are you from?" "I'm from Accounting Island." "Ah ha ha ha! Accounting Island? What, are you serious?" Blah, blah, right? And then she sulks out, right? In other words, like she's ready to be a wrestler in that moment, and they say no, and they laugh her out. That's different than here. They're in the middle of an accounting firm, literally, and she's asking if can she be a wrestler. It's like, why would they? You understand? Like, it's the weird scene. Like, and you're mad and you're sad that you can't be a wrestler when
Right.
you aren't a wrestler yet.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you've never tried to be a wrestler. You know why? Why? It's like,
It also seems
what?
like she doesn't actually put in the effort into it's kind of like the
To
same.
pursue it. To
What's
even
funny is that it harkens back to these to like it borrows a lot from different anime, but from different shonen anime without actually learning the mistakes that they made, right? So this is obviously like also a very because before we had My Hero, we had Naruto, and the
that's
problem
true.
with Naruto because the whole point of Naruto, one of the overarching themes is is hard work versus natural talent. Right?
Right.
Naruto had to earn his way to becoming Hokage. That was the whole point. But Naruto, the problem with Naruto, he wants to be the Hokage, but he never actually puts any effort into learning what it takes to be a Hokage. Even when he becomes older, like people have to like hold his hand through stuff. And even as a kid, he doesn't bother to learn what it actually takes to be a Hokage. Um, and
Yeah.
on top of that, he's you can't say that he works hard. Like you the having being born with a being possessed by a 1,000-year-old demon kind of defeats the hard work versus natural talent dichotomy, right? Uh, because
Yeah.
he already
Yeah.
has power, like he was born with power.
Right. I
It's
get
not,
that.
yeah.
Yeah. But that's
So
what I
it's
mean. Like we don't. It's not that situation here
I know it's
where
not, but
she
what I'm
doesn't
saying
have
is that
any special powers other than her watching this video,
I know that.
and
I guess
that's kind of where. Oh, go ahead.
what I'm getting at is that it tries to utilize these tropes without actually it's trying to be like these other anime without actually learning what makes them what make what actually worked in those animes and what didn't work in those anime.
Yeah,
Like
that's what I'm
the
saying.
reason
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
reason why My Hero is good is that it learned what worked in Naruto and what didn't work in Naruto, and thus became a better show. This
Yeah,
doesn't
that's a
seem like
fair
it's
point.
trying to do
Yeah,
that.
it's like
That's kind of what I'm
kind of
getting at.
yeah, they're kind of checking it. They're just checking a box.
Yeah,
And then you have this scene on the pier. And it's an old lady, and she says, You can't become a wrestler. You just either you are one or you're not." Then she just walks off, and then she turns around and goes back to the town. And the wrestlers are really mad because someone lost their receipts. Of course, it was her because she ran out of the office with the bag of receipts and then left them on the floor. Like it's weird. It's weird. It's like why'd you do that? So, and then the janitor, I guess, threw him out. Apparently, according to her flashback memory, that
yeah.
she wasn't
I
physically
didn't even
there.
I didn't even notice her take the like I know I saw her take the bag, but I didn't even realize that she left them there.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like she left the bag sitting in the hallway or something, right? And
Yeah.
then that was it. But then when she saw them tearing up the town, and they're like, "Where's our receipts?" Right? And she said, "Oh no!" And she flashes back to her dropping the bag and
Yeah, she's like,
crying.
"Oh, this is my fault."
But then they show a janitor pick up the bag and throw it away. And I'm like, wait, was she there watching the janitor throw the bag? How would she know the janitor?
Oh, yeah,
Yes,
okay, yeah,
yeah,
that
it
is weird.
flashes back a memory that she shouldn't have.
Right,
That's what I'm like. In other words, shouldn't the janitor be the one out there saying, "No, it's my fault"? Right?
right.
Realizing he threw the bag away that he shouldn't have thrown away. Right? So yeah, but she owns up to it, to her credit. But then they want to fight, and this is where it gets, it was already kind of wacky. It gets really wacky, but in a fun way. I admit, because they summon this wrestle ring from space, right? And that's kind of where it harkens back to Ultimate Muscle. You showed me that first episode of the original
Yeah.
anime, right?
Well,
And
I
that's actually
also, to be
a
fair, I
scene.
also got a lot of G Gundam vibes. If you remember G Gundam.
Really? Well,
So
okay.
in
I
G
kind
Gundam,
of see it.
when they announced the Gundam fight, there's like
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah,
whole Earth turns into a wrestling ring.
yeah. I got you right. That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah,
It's kind of like this whole, yeah.
yeah,
But so there's a satellite. It drops a ring into the middle of the town, and they have a wrestling match, like instant match. See, and this is where it's kind of like, okay, this is kind of awesome, right?
yeah,
That you can have a wrestle match anywhere. It's because it harkens back to the beginning where it says, like, in this world, wrestling is everything.
yeah.
So this establishes that even more. Wrestling
Right.
is everything. So much so, wrestlers can have a match pretty much anywhere in the world, right? They can just drop a ring and you can challenge a wrestler can challenge another wrestler, right? So I thought that was kind of cool, that idea. And but then it's like, so I don't know. It seems kind of almost like out of nowhere, right? Especially when you're talking about Accounting Island, which to me it presumes there is a legal island or lawyer island. You know, I mean, you understand?
Yeah.
there's a hairstylist island. Like is that how this world works, or I don't know. But yet you can wrestle. And then if that's the case, then why wouldn't there be an accountant wrestler? Like why wouldn't there be an accountant themed wrestler, right? Because wrestlers tend to have themes, right?
That is true. Yeah.
So why wouldn't there be a wrestler
That
who's an
actually would
accountant?
have been awesome. I didn't even
Right.
think about that.
I know, but you understand what I'm saying? Like if that's the kind of, because I'm thinking like One Piece, right? Like One Piece, there's an island, and on the island there's always sort of these sort of
Each island
twists.
has their own gimmick. Yeah.
Yeah, their own twister or whatever. Like yeah, like design and style and whatnot. Uh, so you understand?
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah.
It's like so. I don't know. I mean, it's only the first episode. Um,
So
I give
before,
it a chance, going forward. But right now, yeah, I'm kind of like, I don't
well,
think the
there's
show's gonna
three
last.
episodes out, and honestly, I'm not really interested in watching any more of it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It didn't really pull me in where I'm like, yeah, I want to see like, and then to top it off, once you get to this big match, I mean, she's like what 14, I guess, 15, and she's wrestling this adult man,
All right. So here's the thing. Like,
and that's the part where I'm like, what?
no, and I get that, but okay. So here's the thing, and I said this before, but like, you know, high school girls, whatever, kicking butt in anime is nothing new. But the difference here is the context, right? So like there was an anime I watched in high school called Air Master. Um, it's long story short, it's a bad show with really great fights. But one of the things they established, right, is the main character who earned the title of the Air Master because she fights using her gymnastic skills. So they established that she was already a talented gymnast before she was a street fighter, and she incorporates her gymnast abilities in her fighting style. Like she literally leaps into the air and it looks like she's flying. That's why she's called the Air Master. And she like Mario stomps on people. It's great. But they established that okay, this girl's already super athletic. She was a she was a
Yeah, right.
she
They
was
set
a
they
gymnast
set it up
prodigy.
first. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
they
they
don't.
can pay it off, and that's the problem as well, right?
Yeah,
Is they don't set this up at all.
yeah.
They literally have her watching a video. Like, well,
She's
this one match at
she's
5 years
watching
ago.
fake Bob Ross videos,
Yeah, then she's
and she
watches the
hasn't fought
video.
anybody yet.
Yeah, and that's the part that's like I don't, I don't, I don't understand. Like, what? How are we supposed to root for this character? And you know, and have it be plausible where it's like, yeah, she won because she does win, and it's like, but she won using a move she watched on the video,
Yeah,
right? And it's like, okay, that's not gonna happen,
yeah.
right?
It
Like
would have
he's
made
like
more sense if
300 pounds easy. You're
yeah.
you're a buck, maybe a buck 50 if you're lucky.
It would have made more sense if a more experienced wrestler that came in and saved her.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
more experienced
Well,
wrestler
see,
became her teacher.
that's what I thought would happen with the old lady at the pier. Because I figured, oh, that's probably the wrestler she saw at the beginning 10 years ago, right? So I thought, oh, I bet you that old lady's going to jump in and bust a move and take dude out, right? No, that doesn't happen, So her video watching that one scene, one move on the video pays off. And that's the thing. It's almost like that was the first time she watched that video.
It was.
Right, but you understand because there's no other moves. That's the only move she had.
Yeah.
So that tells me so she watched one match at 5. She grows up 10 years later. She watches a part of a video as far as we know. to learn one move. Then there's an opportunity to meet wrestlers this one day, but it's probably an annual day. But she never cared the 10 years prior. The nine whatever years. You understand?
Yeah,
This year, for some reason, it's a big deal because there's an opportunity for her to actually meet them in person, I guess, face to face. But then she ruins that by oversleeping because
yeah,
she watched the video.
yeah. I want to be able to talk about Kinnikuman because there's something really important that I want to discuss. But
Yeah, go ahead.
I would say overall, my overall thoughts. It's a neat premise that could have worked with a better story, and
Yeah, yeah,
that's
that,
really all it really boils down to. And a more and even if the story and even in spite of it being generic for a lack of a better word, it still probably would have been entertaining if it had a better protagonist.
yeah. I mean, the
Because I've
protagonist.
seen I've seen a lot of a bad anime could could really a great protagonist could carry the worst anime from my experience.
Yeah, I agree. If you have good character development, and that's really the biggest thing with this show is so far, the character development is wanting. Like I don't care anything about this character.
Yeah,
Like there's nothing about her that makes her endearing. She's likable, I suppose, right? Like there's nothing about her that's like unlikable. You know what I mean? Like it's like say
I
I
mean,
met you and
besides the fact
don't
that
not
she,
hate you. You know, like but I don't like you either, right? It's like I don't hate you, but I don't. And that's how
I
I
mean, yeah,
feel.
you're
I don't
indifferent.
hate her.
That's terrible.
Yeah, there's
You
just
shouldn't be
nothing there.
indifferent to your main protagonist.
Right. I'm not really rooting for her. Even in that big fight, I wasn't rooting for her because I'm thinking this is kind of silly. Like it's not earned. And then she won the fight based on this move that she just, you know what I mean? It's like you gotta set that stuff up because it could have been maybe it's just dumb luck, right? But it's like you're
No,
you're
we'll
you're
we'll
not
we'll,
gonna,
we'll, we'll get to dumb luck.
yeah. But yeah, go ahead about Ultimate Muscle.
All right, so you saw the first episode, right? What did you think of? So the reason why I brought up Ultimate Muscle or Kinnikuman or Muscle Man, if you want to, let's just call it in English. The original series is literally just called Muscle Man. So
Yeah,
the reason I wanted to compare it to Muscle Man is because it's about wrestling, and I've seen the original Ultimate Muscle, but I wanted to see how like the original Muscle Man did it because Muscle Man is like one of the OGs of shonen anime. Like it precedes Dragon Ball. Like
yeah,
it established a lot of tropes that Dragon Ball would then perfect, years later. But like Muscle Man did it first, right? The whole action martial arts comedy anime for you
right.
boys, right? This was the original. So first episode of Kinnikuman, and so to sum up the general premise, it is a parody of Ultraman, right? So Muscle Man is to wrestling and superheroes what Kung Fu Hustle is to martial arts movies. It
Yeah,
is both a parody and an homage, and they're not shy about it. They 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 wear their influences on their sleeve. Like literally, uh, uh, Suguru, that's his name, Suguru or Kinnikuman, whatever you want to call him. Suguru is literally just a he is he is the tick of anime. If you remember the tick.
yeah, yeah. That's the impression I got too. Is he's just kind of he comes off as a buffoon,
Yeah.
but he's a buffoon with a good heart, with a heart of gold.
Yes. Literally, it says it in the intro.
Yeah,
It
and
literally
and he,
says it in the intro. He
he
says,
is, he
I
is.
run, I fly, I fall, I'm a little goofy, but if there's no love in your heart, you cannot be a superhero. We'll get to
Yeah,
that in a minute.
yeah.
So they
It's interesting, and it is goofy. It's silly,
yeah.
um,
So
but it's also fun. It
yeah.
is a fun watch.
So basically, you find out in like the first, 5 minutes of the show that there's a superhero looking dude, and like these aliens come from space. His name's Meat, by the way, the alien. Also, this part's hilarious. This just the cops are just have guns.
Yeah, well, this is funny. As an aside, this was hilarious because this is a total reference to Close Encounters.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, and I thought that's hilarious.
No,
Like
it
it
was.
shows like how much Western, art, reflects back into
I mean, they
these
literally
like
make
Japanese.
references to Andre the Giant and Terry
Yeah,
Funk and all
yeah,
that.
exactly. It's like so. It's so funny, like seeing this and seeing that
Yeah.
reference. It's like because it's a popular trope,
Mm-hmm.
right? They even did it in what was that movie?
Aliens versus
Monsters versus
Monsters,
yeah,
Monsters
Monsters
vs. Aliens.
versus
Yeah,
Aliens. Yeah, they
yeah.
did something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like because it's funny, right? It's a funny,
Yeah. No,
I
I
just thought
agree.
that's hilarious that they did that in this show.
So back to Meat. This is Meat. So Meat,
Yeah, that's me.
he's essentially like Toad from Mario Brothers. So he's an alien. He
Yeah,
comes to Earth to meet Kinnikuman. He tells him that he's actually a prince from another planet called the Muscle Planet, and he has to come take the throne and save his home world. And Kinnikuman's like, no, I want to stay on Earth and be a hero and be the president of the Gyudon Club. Gyudon is essentially a type of beef rice bowl. Like
yeah,
imagine if I started a fan club for Yoshinoya. That's essentially what
yeah.
Kinnikuman
And they
is.
literally start the show, and this is what I was referring to earlier with the Invincible uh, Fight Girl, right? Is he has friends. There's this club, right? And they eat this. He says meat rice bowl or something, right?
Yeah,
Steak,
it's just a beef rice bowl.
beef right. But then they fight.
Yeah,
So they like so they eat, then they fight. So you they established him as he's an eater. He loves this food. He has
he's
friends.
goofy. Yeah,
He's goofy, but he's also a fighter. He's strong. He's a fighter.
yeah,
And then when the alien shows up, he wants to be a hero. He doesn't want to just leave, right?
yeah. So
And
he,
it's like all these things get set up very quickly,
oh yeah,
and as wacky as silly as it is, it's done well because you get a good summary of the character very fast,
right. So
and that's the
speaking, yeah,
contrast in the show in Invincible Fight Girl. It's like they started strong with her at the wrestle match,
yeah.
and she's in awe, right, of this wrestler. But then they fast forward 10 years with nothing.
The pig get onto the ship.
You know what I mean? Like they give you nothing, and then we're supposed to believe she's obsessed with wrestling. But then these wrestlers show up, and she has no idea who they are.
Yeah.
And they
Spoiler
don't
alert.
show her. There's no cohort. There's no buddy or friends that also like wrestling, or
Yeah,
like is she wrestling in secret? Is she sneaking off to wrestle matches? Like there's nothing there.
yeah,
So it's like, how am I supposed to be invested if it doesn't appear that she is invested?
yeah. No, I agree. So, funny. Spoiler alert. I know, but the pig that they mistook for her son
Yeah.
that we just saw. So that pig ends up being the main villain in the second episode.
Oh, really?
He grows up and
Right.
takes over the planet. So they even set it up in the first
I
episode.
know
It
because I
pays
thought
off
that
the
was so
second
goofy.
episode
They mistook the pig for their child.
because the son. So well, yeah, well, yeah,
It's like what? It was goofy. I thought
yeah.
the ship was gonna like crash or something, or
No, no,
or be
there's
attacked
just a
by
pig on
aliens.
top of the baby.
It's like no, oh the pig, oh, and they throw the baby out. It's like oh, this show is so wacky.
Yeah, but here's the thing: they set it up in the first episode, and it pays off in the second episode. The pig becomes the villain. He grows up and becomes the villain in the second episode. It's hilarious, but it's also genius. But anyways, so yeah, so he fights. So Meat sets up this fight with him and this giant monster, right? You know, and to convince him to come is like, you need to come and train on Planet Muscle because you're not strong enough. And he's like, what are you talking about? So he sets up this fight, and he's getting his butt whooped, right? And the only reason that he wins is because the monster laughs so hard
Yeah, they
at his
exploded.
ineptitude
Yeah,
that his guts explode. Like Lily, you ever laugh?
after they
Like,
exploded. Yeah,
yeah. and that's literally how he wins, and it's hilarious, right? Now here's
He
like,
literally busted a gut.
yeah, he literally busted a gun. It
It
was
was,
it was
like I
hilarious.
said, yeah, this show is so crazy.
But here's the best part of the show comes in the second half. And in the second half, we get introduced also hello Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant.
Yeah, To- totally. Yeah.
So we
Who
get
do you think the cowboy hero was? The Texan?
Terry Funk.
No, no,
This
no. I mean, who do
talking
you
about
think
this
based off of? Yeah,
talking about that guy, right?
yeah.
Yeah, that's Terry Funk.
Terry Funk.
Yeah.
Who's Terry Funk?
Terry Funk was a wrestler from the early 70s and 80s.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. Keep in mind, the series came out in like the mid 70s. But yeah,
No,
Terry.
I'm just thinking to myself like, man, I don't think I ever heard of Terry Funk. So,
Oh yeah, he was one of the pioneers. He's
okay,
got
so
like
that's pretty
50
good.
years of
Early on,
yeah. I think he debuted
because
in
he looks like uh kind of looks like Bill Clinton
he does
in the face. Yeah,
he does yeah. No, he's based off of no. So Terry Funk was like one of the wrestling pioneers. He debuted in like
that looks like
19
Nixon.
yeah, Japanese Nixon. Thanks, Japanese Nixon. But yeah, so we get introduced to the rival. Of course, he's American. Of course, he's a cowboy. Of
Yeah,
course,
and
he has
he's
a gun.
totally awesome, and
Yeah,
he's a staunch capitalist, as we learned
yeah. Don't you
eventually.
know all superheroes charge money for their services in America?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
So
that was interesting because that's
right.
kind of, but I like what happens later, right? Because he's showing them up, right? He's getting all the
Yeah.
ladies. He's seen as Mr. Cool and all this
Yeah.
stuff, and he's like lame. It smells like garlic, so
Yeah.
they don't like him, and
So,
he's
so here,
goofy.
so
Yeah,
here's how they set up. So right, the good protagonist is always right. The refusal of the call, and there's a moment where they rise to occasion, right? And we get that in the first half, the refusal of the call, right, where he's like,
right.
I don't want
Yeah,
to go.
he doesn't want to leave. He doesn't want to get training. Yeah,
Yeah, and then here, right, we see Terry. He's like, hey, they made me the official hero of Japan, so you
right.
can be lazy and eat beef bowls all day. And he's like, cool. Wait a minute, no, they're supposed to love me. And so what ends up happening though is another giant monster comes and he
Hero,
yeah yeah
like official hero. Yeah,
yeah.
it's
So what
hilarious.
so what ends up happening is that another monster comes and the monster apparently is holding this guy hostage and the guy's son comes to get help from the heroes, right? And of course, the dude's like, "You got money, kid?" And the kid, he breaks open his piggy bank. He's like, "This is all my money." And Terry Man's like, "Hey, this isn't enough money," and he kicks the kid, right? And then
Yeah,
what does he do? He stalks him out, right? And not only that, but he gives the money back to the kid and says, "Let's go save your father," right?
yeah.
And that
Great
was
scene.
the
That was
moment
a great scene. Yeah,
where, yeah, awesome, awesome dude, right? Now, and what's so good about this, right, is that Terry Mann warns him, hey, if you try to do hero work, the government will
yeah. They're
turn
gonna
against you,
fire on you. They're
right?
gonna attack
And
you.
what does he say? He says the Yamato spirit. Well, he's basically said the Japanese equivalent of God is on my side.
Yeah,
Goes out anyways. This is what makes Kinnikuman a hero, and this is how it ties into the main title sequence, right? I could be strong, I could be silly, I could be fast, I could fall. But no matter what, if there's no love in my heart, I'm not a hero. And we clearly see that he loves people and he loves his country. In spite of his silliness, he knows when to rise. He knows what matters. He knows when to rise to the occasion.
yeah. And
That's
and actually, this part where the Texan comes, right, and he
yeah,
sees
and
his
he's
son
moved right,
fighting. Yeah, he's moved by what he
and
sees
he
that this
throws
guy.
away the hero badge.
Yeah, and
He's
and
like,
his
you know what?
clothes as well. for, for some reason, yeah. Well, I
well,
guess
well, yeah, he's a
super
wrestler.
underwear has to be
Yeah.
expose whatever.
Yeah, like
But
he's
he
like,
joins the fight. And it's funny is they don't even show the rest of the fight. They just go,
well,
yeah,
that's not really what
he
matters. What
teamed up
matters,
and all is well now.
yeah. But here's the thing: the fight itself isn't what matters. What matters is that we saw Kinnikuman rise to the occasion as a hero,
Right. Yeah.
and simultaneously inspire another hero on what actually
Right.
matters.
Right. Exactly. Because he didn't quibble about payment or anything. He just jumped
Now
in
he
and
said, "You know what? He's right," and he threw. He said, "I don't need permission to be a hero," and he threw his. And he didn't have to say anything. He just did it, and that's kind
yeah,
of what.
he
That's
set the example. He set the
yeah,
tone, and he inspired another hero. Right.
yeah, and that's what. And that's what makes.
I mean, it makes me think of now I'm realizing this is probably a big influence on One Punch Man as well. You know, um,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
One Punch Man, that's kind of all that's happening is he's inspiring all these other, not just the heroes, he's inspiring villains as well. Ironically, so it's kind of interesting. Um, but yeah, he's inspiring these other heroes to be heroes. Like he's the reason for the entire hero organization, right? Without even realizing it, he's simply
Right,
doing
just by
what
being
he thinks
himself.
is right.
Yeah.
Yeah, just doing what's right. Like he's not,
And with
and but
Kinnikuman,
yeah,
Man, it's like it's almost the I mean, he almost has the opposite problem. The problem isn't like he's too strong or anything. The problem is that he's a bumbling idiot. He's a buffoon. But he knows. But obviously, this episode demonstrates that when push comes to shove, he knows when he needs to step up and protect people and stuff like that.
yeah, and that's the he's moved by uh the appearance of injustice, right? He's moved by that,
Yeah.
the unfairness, injustice, and he acts right. And you can look through all the silliness and see, wow, that's a hero. That's really awesome. And
Yeah.
that's kind of that's what's kind of lacking with um, the Invincible Fight Girl so far. Like like you said, it's the first episode, but I hope they do a better job of like I don't know, just fleshing her out more so that there's real stakes involved. Because there's really nothing there. In that first episode, it's just stuff happening.
Well, here's my
Yeah.
problem. Like they can't fix her, but they should have already addressed that in the first episode. When I used to make video games, right? One of the things that me and my best friend used to talk about is that the first level of your video game matters. It sets the tone for the rest of the game. We talked
Yeah,
about how everyone talks about World 101 Super Mario Brothers. Green Hill Zone, right? One of the best first levels of all time, right? It's fast, it's colorful, it's got great music, it sets the tone for Sonic. Um, what's another one? Oh yeah, Castlevania,
yeah,
specifically.
that's true.
Yeah, no, Castlevania. Yeah, you get the entrance to the castle. It's all cinematic. You know, you go to the
Yeah,
court.
that's right.
There's these different set pieces. It sets the tone. So if you don't
Yeah,
set the
hmm
tone right off the bat with your first whatever, then it
yeah,
doesn't really matter,
yeah.
right?
It's the
So,
same.
and it's
It's
the
the
same
same
thing with shows.
with writing with movies. If there's a
Yeah,
problem in the third act, it starts in the first act,
yeah,
right? And
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 not
that's
just
that's
that,
the
but like,
case here. Is it's the problem with the third act with the big fight scene um, is that it wasn't properly set up
yeah, but
in
not only
the
just that,
first
but
act.
like, I'm also talking about like the way you introduce a character as well, right?
And that's what I'm talking about. That's literally what I'm referring to.
Oh, okay,
Is they didn't introduce us to her in a way that set up that big fight. You understand?
well,
It's
not just
like
the fight, but
like
also like her personality, like what,
I
like
know I agree, but everything that happens is wrapped around this character, right?
yeah,
That's why we're watching, and
yeah,
that's what I'm talking. Like with the Ultimate Muscle guy, right?
yeah,
They establish him from the jump. We see he's goofy, he's silly,
yeah,
but he has friends, right? And he's kind of innocent and a bit naive, and he
yeah.
loves this dish, and
But
he's
not only
just
that,
eating
but
and
like all
enjoying
the
his life.
interactions with he has with different people, they all play off of his personality, right? Like
Right. Exactly.
when Terry calls him Muscle Man, and he's like muscle, and he's like, yeah, that's the English word for Kiniku, and he's like, oh well, I always take things seriously. And he basically made a pun because muscle sounds like the Japanese word for straightforward, and they're like,
Right.
yeah, that was dumb. Why would you say that? you know,
Yeah, but you understand, like
like
you get a
he is
sense
an
of who he
interesting
is.
character
Yeah, but you
throughout the
get a
show.
sense of who he is from the beginning, so
Yeah,
that when he gets to that big fight and he helps the little boy, it
that's true. Yeah,
makes sense. You're
yeah,
like, of course he's going to help the little boy, right? Because he hasn't shown any malice up to that point,
no,
right? But the hero, he walks in and he's arrogant, cocky, and
hmm,
they're saying how cool he is. You kind of see it coming, where it's like, yeah, this guy, he's a hero,
yeah,
but he's kind of a jerk too. And when
right,
he denies the kid because he doesn't have any money, that exposes everything.
yeah,
That also sets off Muscle Man, where he's like, oh man, I
yeah,
got to do something about this.
hmm,
It's awesome. You're rooting for it because you see it coming.
right.
You're like, there's going to be a moment where he's going to shine, right?
And here's the thing: all these stakes are against him, right? He was just, he was just an they, his Japan, the Japanese government chose Terry Man over him to be their national hero.
Right,
And
exactly.
then on top of that, if he does do hero work, the military is going to
They're
try
going to
to,
attack him, and they do attack him, right?
yeah,
When he
yeah.
starts fighting them, they
And
did.
then he fights the monster anyways.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. It shows them being selfless, but it showed that at the beginning as well, right?
Hmm.
And that's what I'm saying with Invincible Fight Girl. We don't get a sense of her character at the beginning. Like I said, the scene where her friend is stressing out, right? And instead of helping him,
Yeah,
she she
she
just takes his spot. She's like, "Oh, I'm going to steal his spot. He's not going to do
yeah
it."
she
It's
has
like,
no defining
versus
moment.
what happened if what if you helped him, like you actually snuck in with him. That's what I was saying. Like, why make her dumb where she's not a good accountant? Versus, why couldn't she just be a good accountant, but she
Wait,
just
so
doesn't want
here's
to
the
do
thing:
it?
you could make her
Because
dumb, but you could still
no,
make
no,
her.
but think about it. Then she could have said, "I'll help you
Mhm.
do the accounting," and they both sneak in, and maybe she's hiding under the desk and she's whispering to him,
Yeah,
"Just do this," and blah blah blah, right? And then
yeah,
somehow it all falls apart, right? They get busted.
right,
That you understand that, but it shows. Oh, but she's a friend. She's
right,
self. She even though she's getting kicked out or she wasn't allowed in, right? She still wanted to help her classmate. You see what I mean? But and because she it's still an opportunity for her to meet a wrestler. But it's like, well, I can't because I got to help my friend. You see what I mean? It's like now she's selfless. So then later, when she has to fight the wrestlers, it makes sense. You're setting up that once again a selfless act, right? And that's why it's like the fact that it was her fault kind of diminishes that, right? You understand what I mean?
yeah,
Like it's like what if it was her friend's fault somehow? Like I said, she snuck in with him, she's helping him, but then he caves under the pressure. He can't. He's not listening to her,
yeah,
and the wrestlers are too intimidating, and he rushes out with the bag of receipts and loses them. You
right,
see what I mean? So then they find out later it was that kid right there. Yeah, let's get him, right?
yeah,
And she's like, no, right? And she rushes in to help him.
hmm,
And he's like, no, it's my fault. I deserve this. And she's like, no, that's not fair. And this and that, right? You can't just beat him up. And he's not a wrestler. Oh, really? And say, I'm a wrestler, though. You can fight me. There you go.
yeah,
You understand what I'm saying? Like,
hmm,
that's all I mean. It's like now you're setting her up as a hero, right? Because that's what she's supposed to be. She's supposed to be a hero. She's the
right.
main character. The main character is not supposed to be a villain, contrary to Joker and these other movies, The Penguin, right? While they're good movies, right, except for the second Joker,
Well,
the,
they're
the
supposed
hero
to
is
give you.
supposed to be your main character, not the other way around.
Well, you need to give me a reason to root for to be on the side of the protagonist, even if they are the quote unquote villain, right? That's why
Right, but
people like
no,
Breaking
but
Bad,
yeah, but that's what I'm saying.
and
It's
we
it's
don't get that.
but yeah, but we're not in that space of ambiguity, right?
No, I get that. I'm just saying,
What this is a clear cut. She's supposed to be the hero,
yeah, yeah,
right? She's not, at least from what I'm seeing, she's not the villain. Now, if
Yeah,
that's the twist here, where she does become a, because wrestlers in the world of wrestling, there
yeah.
are
The space
heroes and
isn't.
villains.
Yeah.
So maybe she will become a villain. I don't know. So, and that's a good point. Maybe they're setting her up to be a villain. That's, I guess, why. But why would I want to watch a show about? I don't know.
That wasn't my point. My point was no matter whether no matter where your protagonist falls on the moral spectrum, as the storyteller, you need to give me a reason to root for and follow the protagonist. And
Yeah,
we don't really get that. That's all I'm saying.
right. We don't. I mean, yeah, it she falls flat to me. A lot of people like. There's a lot of positive comments. There's a lot of negative ones too. But we'll see. Hopefully, it gets better.
Like I said, I think a lot of people like the premise. They like the action and they like the animation. And I think they're just happy to see new content, which is fine.
Yeah, I agree with
I
that.
just
But
hope it gets better.
yeah, I do. I do. But I
I'm
don't
not
know.
like
I'm
I'm not
getting.
praying for anybody's downfall or anything like
Yeah,
that. I
yeah,
just
but
don't think that this was in my opinion, this wasn't a very good first impression.
no, I'm getting, like I said, Mary Sue vibes going on. So that's a problem. So um, we'll see. There's a lot of other things I could point out, but I'll save it for another time.
Oh, I mean, I think we said everything that needed to be said. You know, I think if you're gonna do a wrestling show, animated show, go all out. You know, make the wrestlers as over the top as possible, right? Like Kinnikuman, he's Ultraman, right? So he grows 10 feet tall
Yeah, yeah,
eating
yeah,
garlic because in Japanese, fun fact, in Japanese, the word for garlic rhymes with the word for muscle.
yeah. That's funny.
So Niniku, right? Yeah, so,
Yeah.
well,
So of course it
Terry
makes
Man, he's
right.
got a cowboy hat and he's got a gun because he's in
Yeah,
Texas.
yeah, yeah,
There's literally a wrestler named what was his name? His name was Ramen Man, and he's a Chinese kung fu wrestler who could shoot tigers out of his fists. I can't make this up.
yeah. But this is the thing. It doesn't even have to be that outrageous.
I'm not saying you
It's
have
just,
to do it
but
exactly like.
no,
I'm
I
just
know,
saying
but
it's
I'm just
over
saying
the
I
top.
agree
It's
with you. I'm
wrestling. It's
just
supposed to be over the top. That's my
yeah,
point.
I agree with you, and that's what I'm saying. It's like, but even with this show, just I don't know. It's like just push it a little bit further,
But that's my
and
point. That's my point.
yeah. It's like I'm just saying, yeah, it doesn't even have to be that extreme. It's just push it a little bit more, but also set up your character. I just don't.
Yeah,
I don't know who this character is. I just know she's a black little girl that likes wrestling, apparently. Like based on very minimal evidence.
yeah,
So I don't know. It just doesn't. Yeah, like, and there's like no doubters. Like there's no one doubting her. Like her parents are just happy to make her an accountant, right? Oh, she's like, oh, you're gonna, but no one doubts her though, right? No one saying you can't do it, except until she gets to that scene with the wrestlers, right? But that scene makes sense because it's like, yeah, why would they say, yeah, you can be? That doesn't make sense. No one would agree. No one would. Like that's why I was like, it should have been a different context where I don't know, or even if she had asked the question later after losing the receipts, and she faces them when they're destroying the town, and I don't know, and they laugh at her saying, oh, you can't fight us, and she's like, I will, and I don't know. it's there's a million and one ways it could have gone better, but yeah, let's cut it short.
let us know what you thought about Invincible Fight Girl.
Yeah,
What did
please
you
do.
like? What did you didn't like? What didn't you like?
And or
Uh,
do you think we're just way off, and we're just you know we're just blowing smoke up your butt? I don't know.
you
Maybe
know,
we're missing
if
something.
you're a fan of wrestling shows and wrestling in general or wrestling anime, what are some things that you think that Invincible Fight Girl could do better? Um, what are your thoughts on Kinnikuman and that series? What's your favorite wrestling anime series? Because there's a few out there. Wrestling's really big in Japan.
Yeah,
Well, let us know your thoughts on wrestling shows in the comments below.
yeah, definitely. And thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And please like and share. And thank you and have a wonderful Wednesday, a wondrous Wednesday. And we'll see you later.
We'll see you around.